there's a great question that came up in the community the other day on what your favorite model release strategy is. Do you do A/B testing? Are you doing the canary? Are you doing shadow? And why you're doing it? And there's a comment in here from Richard Puckett. So shout out to Richard. And he said something that I just thought it was fascinating because he was talking about A/B testing. And one issue that he runs into a lot when doing the A/B testing with models that he's deploying is that he finds it really hard to test or get the actual business KPIs that he can compare against. And so he's saying, well, I'm curious, how do you solve the problem? For example, do you just measure the model accuracy, or are you measuring a combination of factors like accuracy, precision, recall, inference time? And then how have your experiences been with measuring the impact against the business KPIs? Because we always want to tie it back to that. So I thought that was a immensely in-depth question and really like shows the level that he's thinking of, like, is it these business KPIs which are really adding value to the business, like, increased engagement or sales number? That's what you're really trying to do with a model. But if you're just measuring the accuracy, it could have incredible accuracy, but if it's not moving the needle at all with these business KPIs, then what is it there for? And so how do you go about doing that if you're testing, or I should say, if you're trying to do this A/B testing?
So now, when we talk about because in the deployment aspect, the A/B testing is completely different than in the development aspect of it, and whatever the KPIs that comes into play is in the model development aspect of it. The reason if you take deployment, coming back to the same example, if somebody swipes a credit card and I say it's not a fraud, I will not really know that whether it was a real fraud or not unless the customer comes and complain to me. So when I deployed the model, it's I don't have the ground truth at that time, and until the customer complains, which can be 30 days later, right? Now, when it comes to model development, I will clearly focus on the business KPIs when I'm doing multiple models and I'm doing an A/B testing. A typical example is accuracy is fine because accuracy is not a metric for fraud detection. Only 0.2% of the entire transaction is fraud. So even if might go with accuracy, if my model predicts 99% accuracy, it's still like basically it's not catching the fraud at all, right? One of the things that we do is we go and take the model and go with business KPIs. So there are two industry standard metrics that you can see for fraud detection. And the reason I'm focusing on fraud detection is because I'm more familiar with banking. And that will be true with any industry. Just substitute your own business KPIs. One is the fraud detection rate. Second is the transaction detection rate. So basically, how many transactions are fraud and detect is actually fraud. So when I'm doing two model comparison, I exactly know what is my transaction detection rate and fraud detection rate of each model. And now I can run a statistical test to compare which model is better, right? In model deployment, that kind of you're talking about different deployment strategies, right? Shadow deployment, canary deployment, and all. And see, the machine learning model is basically you continuously keep training it at frequent interval or when the model gets drifted, right? Now, typically what you do in that case is you don't want to override the model that is running in production with the new model because you don't know how your new model is performing, whether it's performing better than your existing model. So that's where you go for more kind of an champion challenger deployment or canary deployment. And what you can do is you can make a load balance between those two, like say 80% to model A, which is running in production, and 20% to new model. And I can keep monitoring it. And in this case, I'm monitoring only the metrics of the model, not the business KPI. The reason is I don't know whether what is the actual label that my model predicted and what is the ground truth, right? So what I do is I just go with the assumption that my underlying data distribution has not changed, and I just see like my model output. I just tell, okay, my model has predicted 80% right and 20% wrong. And what was my ground truth? Does it match the ground truth? What about the B model? Does it match the ground truth? And that's what I we typically test when it's deployment, and doing development, it's business KPIs.